It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week we take a return to Middle Earth. Mike, we're going there and back again. A Hobbit story.
You know what? I think all of our Lord of the Rings conversations are going to be hilarious to me because I know so little. I already have an anecdote about just what is literally the middle of this earth, and I've learned more things in this new Lord of the Rings show that I'm sure lots of fans out there are like, what are you talking about? How did you not know this already? So we'll have fun when we talk about that.
And I think it's going to be better because I don't know anything about the other show that has similar vibes, so I think this is going to be great for us. D23 casting rumors for Marvel are what dreams are made of, Mike. This is hot rumor this week, and God, I hope some of it's, even if some of it's true, we still come out ahead.
The next big convention, Comic-Con Part 2, as we were calling it earlier, is finally coming. Yes.
And that is next week, by the way, so we'll talk more about that in a little bit. DC's Fandome is canceled.
Womp womp.
I'm surprised to nobody. Warner Brothers Discovery has decided to just get rid of Fandome, and that's okay because literally they've pushed everything back so far that nothing. If they showed had a Fandome this year, it would be the same stuff they showed last year, right? Like literally, Black Adam is maybe the only movie on track so far, and that's because The Rock is a single promotion man for that show. So, good for him. So yeah, and more.
Yeah, I think Warner Brothers' stock price is low enough now where The Rock could probably just liquidate all of his assets and just purchase Warner Brothers. That would be really funny. Yeah, and then he could just tweet out marketing campaigns and, they'd save a lot of dough there. But today we are recording on a U.S. holiday known as Labor Day, also a bank holiday, public school holiday. I don't know what private kid schools do on this day, but I would assume they're off too. So we decided
they're probably
to
off
wait
more than the public school kids. So
yeah, probably. So. I don't know. We've been rewatching Gilmore Girls, which is like half of the plots are about private school, and it's just like a weird world. I don't know what they do. I feel like there's always like cloaks and candles and like seances. Well, it always seems very like cryptic and like Hot Fuzz,
Well, if you don't have access to film in a classroom and you don't want to do like normal school stuff, just say it's a private school and you make up what you want as you go, right? Like we're in private school, our curriculum is whatever it is. We have D&D at 4.
All we need is a building that has like stone walls, because I feel like that's where all these private schools on the East Coast look like. They're always like old abandoned like churches or cathedrals. So that's probably like the vibe I'm going for here with the occult type of vibes. But anyway, it's Labor Day, which some might consider the unofficial end of summer. And
pools are closing, folks.
Yes, exactly. And as we all know, the seasons here in the United States, where Hollywood is located, for the longest time has kind of set the pace for pop culture, like when it's come to TV and movie release schedules. But, like we've been talking about like the last like 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this podcast, those schedules are slowly getting thrown out the window. I think the only thing that's really held true, really, I would say, is like the June, July window for those really big movies. But even the Marvel movies have moved closer to that April release. So really, I think truly the only thing that has withstood the test of these shifting sands of time would be that December movie, right? They always know that that big holiday is going to be there. So as we wait here for Avatar to chime in that big movie schedule. Now we're just kind of at the end of summer, so we're just kind of waiting to see what comes our way. And streaming's kind of been filling that hole, I feel like.
Well, I think that, and just to be clear, our first 3 topics are within a week of each other, right? Or 2 weeks maybe at most. So literally it's quote unquote fall TV time without it actually being, you're not turning over the air, you're not going to cable. These are things that you can watch streaming instantly, but it is like all within like 1 to 2 weeks of each other. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is strange. Like, I feel like there's a psychology to determine the release of anything nowadays, right? You know, if it's summertime, you can say, oh, yeah, you got to release Stranger Things during summertime, right? Like, nobody's in school. Everybody's got nothing but time to kill. Like, you know, it's hot outside. Go inside and watch Stranger Things. But then you could say, well, no, it's a bad idea. Everyone's on vacation. Where the hell are they going to sit down and watch TV? Now that school's back in session.
Wait, I schedule my vacation around Stranger Things, Mike. I'm not going anywhere once they give me that release date.
But as I say this, we'll talk more about the differences and the similarities between Rings of Power and House of Dragon. But I feel like anyone that is at an age where they are dictated by a school schedule, you might not be in the appropriate age category for House of Dragons. So that could be a little bit of a misnomer there. But anyway, end of summer, going into fall, we have decorated our place fall style. We got pumpkins and gourds out the wazoo. We got scented candles all around the place. So we got the fall vibes here. But as I was telling Chris earlier before we hit the record button, it is blazing hot here in Southern California. It has been over 100 degrees for, I think, like the last 4 or 5 days, and we got a few more days ahead of us. So we are melting, which has been making me retreat indoors and download free games on my PlayStation. So yes. I went ahead and I downloaded it's for all intents and purposes, it's a new, right? Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. So it's not like they did a graphical polish. They've like rebuilt the whole game, right?
It is. I don't know. I actually bought this for Xbox when it came out year and a half ago. And it plays a lot like the originals because I have the originals as well to play side by side. But like, I would say it's a remaster akin to what they're doing with like Last of Us. Like, there's similar animations, there's similar, all the levels are familiar, but it's lacking some of the originals of like the Mountain Dew tokens. I think are gone, right? Some of that stuff, the licensing stuff from back then are taken out, and it feels just a little smoother than it did.
Yeah, come on, dude, you can't get that sponsorship dollars back in the game.
They're cranking out flavors left and right. I mean, put it in the. I'd play any game that had Mountain Dew tokens in it.
They had to move their sponsorship budget to their R&D budget apparently. But my only anecdote for this game right now is I have not played a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game in, if I had to guess, it could honestly be 2 decades, 20 years since I have put my fingers to the controller to do a kickflip or a grind or a nose grab or what have you. So it gave me the option while the game was still installing to where I could go through the tutorial or I could go directly to the warehouse. I was like, well, I'm just going to go to the warehouse because I don't feel like dealing with prompts for telling me how to do things. So I drop into the warehouse and I couldn't believe it, Chris. My hands remembered exactly what to do, which is so strange because this isn't like picking up like a first-person shooter where they're pretty much all operate under the same premise where you can assume the right trigger is going to be your gun, your left trigger is probably going to be a grenade or something of that sort, and you're either like clicking a control stick or you're hitting like the square or circle button to melee, right? Those apply to so many video games out there in the world, but there's only a very small number of skateboarding games, right? And I could not believe that my fingers just remembered exactly where Ollie was, where grind was, how to do all of this stuff. There's a few minor things that like I forgot, but I was just like shocked. It was like literally the euphemism of like riding a bike. You never forget how to do it, but it just happens to be a skateboard. So this will just be a small PSA of like, if you felt like you've been kept out of the skateboarding genre because it's been a while since you've been in it, man, you picked that up real quick. So I was just fascinated. It was wild. So that was what I got up to over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I bought it when it came out because I love 1 and 2, right? The soundtracks alone are worth the price of admission. And even if you got these back then, I think they were like still $40. They weren't full price games. But the 1 and 2, all the tracks, multiplayer is really fun, right? You do the horse mode or the tag mode where you try to grind on as many things or do as many tricks, to get higher points than the other person. It's really fun. But like you said, it's all about the nostalgia factor. This is a really good remaster that takes you immediately back to the late 90s, your N64, your PlayStation 1 versions of these games, right? That you're just in the zone and listening to Goldfinger's Superman because all you want to do is listen to that soundtrack over and over and over again for that. So 100% agree with you. I think it's fantastic. I, on the other hand, have been dipping into retro games. I've been sending you bits in this, but I'm now part of a quote-unquote collective called Rad Retro Bros, Mike. I was going to put this in here with my friends Matt and John, and of course there's other people involved, but we're the big three. Matt and John are actual brothers. I'm quote-unquote an adopted brother, if you will. But Matt and John, Matt actually buys arcades, buys retro games, has a huge collection. We actually did some unboxing videos I'm going to be editing coming up here on, like, you ever play Zombies Ate My Neighbors back in the day?
Familiar, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you did that. The new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection has 13 TMNT games on it, from arcade to NES, Super Nintendo, even some Sega and Game Boy stuff and some other stuff. So when you talk about old games taking you back, I'm like, that is like my, right now I'm just drinking from that Kool-Aid, like of old games. Like, I need something, and that's keeping me inside, because we're not having heat like you are here in the Midwest. I'm having unpredictable rainstorms, so I don't know if I can go outside or not, because am I about to get poured on or not. So 100% agree with you there. And just a little PSA for everyone before we jump into the show notes here. We are going to be recording next Monday. We will be recording Monday night and putting it out rather than Sunday, due to some scheduling conflicts we have. However, we promise it will be a really good episode because of D23 being next weekend, and we're going to be covering that in full detail, Mike.
Yes, it'll be a great recap. Stay tuned. We'll be here getting into it.
Yes, 100%. Just letting everybody know now. We've had to record Mondays more this year than we've ever had to record Mondays before, but we're trying our best here. We're doing our best for people. So let's jump into some shows here. I think probably one of the most anticipated shows, right, of this year in terms of budget, size, scale, and IP, and that's the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power on Amazon Prime. This is so big. I've seen Amazon trucks in my neighborhood with Lord of the Rings marketing on the side of those Amazon Prime trucks, Mike. That's how big this is getting, and I bet you're used to that out in LA, probably more than I am here in the Midwest. So to see that is very interesting. Going up in our neighborhood.
Yeah, it's crazy how much is on the line, it feels like, for Amazon for Rings of Power. I know these are just kind of insider reports, so you have to take them with a grain of salt, but there has been chattering out there that Amazon is putting kind of the entire future of their Amazon Prime Video service on the shoulders of the success of this show, right? And it sounds a little silly at first when you think about it, because obviously they have big hits like The Boys, they have like huge Emmy Award winners like Marvelous Miss Maisel, and also we enjoyed Invincible, so they're kind of starting to build out this adult kind of animation side of things over there as well. But when you learn that the budget per episode on this series is twice as expensive as the most expensive like Game of Thrones episode out there, and I've seen those numbers thrown all around too. All you can do is just average all of the wild numbers you've seen, and you still arrive at incredibly expensive to make this show. Yeah. So there's so much on the line that, like, whether or not I was a Lord of the Rings fan or not, of course I'm going to watch it because I want to see what all this money looks like on the screen. Yeah. I mean, you and I, obviously we have Amazon Prime because we're online. We shop. We want that next day, 2-day, free shipping, however we want to get it. So this almost feels more free to me even than Netflix or anything else feels free to me.
Well, HBO Max, right? You have to go out of your way for some people to get that, right?
Yes.
And this is just a tack on, like, oh, I guess I've already got it. Let's go watch it.
Yes.
Kind of
so long story short, of course, we watched it. We were looking forward to it. But I think as Chris and I maybe were alluding to at the top of the show, we're not huge like Tolkien fans. Like, well, I think you know more than I do, but I wouldn't say we're like at the level where we're going to be doing like a spin-off podcast where we're going to be doing Tolkien talks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know enough to be dangerous about this. You know, I've read the books. You know, I've watched the movies, watched the extended editions. You know, read synopsis online. Tried to follow along more than I would Game of Thrones or any of those, simply because I think the the longevity of Lord of the Rings and how immersive it is. Like, right, there's Led Zeppelin songs that reference Lord of the Rings. It's in everything. There's video games. You name it, this property is touched at this point. So to me, I'm a little more ingrained with it, a little more down with, its production. It's also a movie series, right? This is the first Lord of the Rings TV foray compared to, and I'm not going to compare these, apples for apples, or Game of Thrones, which has only been TV shows, right? Like, it's never had movies, it's never had a theatrical release. So for the Rings of Power, Amazon to have this, which is not technically tied to the Lord of the Rings movie universe directly, but I feel they are moving towards that a little bit, at least referencing it without directly saying it, because we have, we watched this, I've watched it, the first episode, I'm not going to see the second one yet, this weekend, but, there are names and locations dropped all over this that I'm very familiar with, right?
Yeah, and I feel like it'll be
I'm not, like, reading all the books all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like it'll be a little bit of a learning curve, I think, for media in general, for just how to talk about either Rings of Power or even House of Dragons, because these are prequels with kind of material that already exists out there in the world. I mean, I have the exact same itch in the back of my brain when I'm watching these two shows of, oh, I could just go online and Google, like, who these people are or who they are alluding they are to be, and I could just get my answer right now. But I feel like the show is wanting me not to do that, so I can maybe be a little bit more surprised down the line. I'm always looking for, like, okay, I feel like this could be, like, a grandfather or, like, a great-great ancestor of this character that I saw in the other version of this show. Mm-hmm. So it's not entirely sure what exactly is or isn't spoilers. So I think just prepare yourself for just light, gentle spoilers in general. But I think if there's like a big beloved character at any given time that would die in one of these shows, I would say that is, be careful. Don't spoil that for people. But this would be kind of like a long-winded way to say. There's a few things that took me a little off guard about Lord of the Rings because I'm just such a noob. Like, I didn't realize that it was called Middle Earth because it's in the middle of stuff. I just never assumed that there was places off the map, right? Because it seems like whenever you're introduced to a fantasy world, the landmass that you're presented with is almost always like a gigantic continent, right? And everything around it doesn't matter. I didn't realize, I guess, to the left of the map, there's like more elves. And is that where like Frodo goes at the end of the trilogy, right? Okay, that makes that makes a little bit more sense.
And I think the difference here is the Rings of Power are this in the Second Age, thousands and thousands of years before Lord of the Rings takes place, right? The landscape of this Middle Earth is a little different. There's things that allude to it, and there are characters that do, age into their roles in Lord of the Rings. And I don't think this is a spoiler simply because we know Galadriel and Elrond are in this show, right? Younger versions of themselves, who are main character. I wouldn't say main characters, main players in the Lord of the Rings later. But this show is coming from starts off with an elven point of view, right? We've never really gotten that. We've only gotten the hobbits' viewpoint. Like, they are like people who don't travel, they don't want trouble, they never do anything, they live in their holes in the ground, they stay in their little farming communities, and they never do anything or want to learn anything. So I think the lens at which we're viewing Lord of the Rings, the original stuff, versus this, this expands upon that quite a bit, and I'm actually enjoying that. Like you said, like learning more about the world at large rather than just, hey, here's a band of characters and what they see in the moment. Not necessarily the history of the universe.
Yeah, it really does feel like a history lesson at times, too, because it was funny going into this. We had talked about this previously when the show was announced, like, oh, well, this is something we don't really have to worry so much about, like, prequelitis, because this is, like, such a prequel so far back in time. Things will be so disconnected, but then you had to gently remind me, like, oh, don't forget these elves, like, never die, so those will continue as kind of, like, your arc through the story. Which is probably why they're kind of taking front and center point when it comes to the story right? And then this was almost hilarious to me. We open up with a narration, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the first thing the narration says is just like, oh, there was actually a whole nother bad guy, a whole nother war and stuff that you missed. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be the beginning of all of this stuff. Like, no. Like, this isn't the beginning. Like, I guess we're holding back possibly a little bit more. Maybe if they want to do another prequel.
I think it's the right. I think it comes down to the rights. I think Amazon only has the rights to the second age, which is post Morgoth, which is the big evil, the pre-Sauron evil. So
I had to learn who the hell a Morgoth was. That took me a little bit to figure out.
Yeah, so they're playing in a very interesting area, right? They don't have the third age, and the third age is, Gandalf, Saruman. Those wizards didn't come until the third age. So, like, there's a very interesting set of characters they can do, very interesting set of window they can tell. But at the same time, like, you have to educate us, and the problem, there's a problem and not a problem here is we've talked about prequelitis, right? I'm never worried about two of these characters so far. Elrond and Galadriel will live for thousands of years more after this, so I don't think they're ever going to die. But every other character seems to be new to me, right? I don't know them. I've never seen them. I feel like that's good that we can build relationships with those characters. I think, to me, what I like about this show the most so far, Mike, and you can tell me what you think, it feels, because of the Lord of the Rings, it feels familiar to me, and like the adaptation, for the show, the world feels the same, right? The Harfoots, which I believe are pre-Hobbit characters, right? That's what they seem to be. Feel like the hobbits, there are the elves and their cities. Everything feels like, oh, I remember this from watching Lord of the Rings, and this world, I'm already here. I know it. Great. The consistency of the quality is there. And when you talk about money, I was looking at effects the whole time, right? I'm like, how are the effects? How are these worlds and sets built? And I feel it. I honestly feel the quality coming through that money. Like,
it looks great. We kind of get our first flex on at least a fully CG character right in the first episode, where we get to see, I think it's a snow troll, or
snow
I don't
troll.
know I don't know exactly what the genus of that character was, but my wife leaned over to me like unprompted, like, this looks really good. And I was like, yeah, right? Yeah, we've kind of reached this point of, like, this is like feature budgets, of course. And also, when you look at a budget per episode, they're pre-planning all of this ahead of time, right? They have to budget per episode to, like, pay directors and writers and whatnot. But all of this visual effects work is being spread across, like, tons of different studios over, like, months and years. So they're picking their fights, and they're doing it really, really well, because everything looks great.
And I hate, and simply because I haven't watched the second one, I feel like the first one is lighter maybe on that CGI than maybe other episodes might be, because a lot of it feels like tactile sets, right? There's a scene when they're in a kind of a garden of trees with statues, talking, and I'm like, this feels good. Like, this doesn't feel like a closed off set. It feels like an open set, but like, I can feel the the tactileness of this set as these characters are moving around these, like, elven places back and forth.
Yes, unfortunately, I feel like with every popular release with a big fan base, you always have the vocal minority. And if you've been on Twitter over the weekend, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is, not immune to any of that. I've seen every noxious hot take that you could possibly see, from the color of the skin of these fantasy characters to people just, like, micro analyzing just VFX, and like, these people just really need to chill out. I suppose you could have beef when it comes to maybe how you feel the story is being portrayed, because if you're a super Lord of the Rings nerd and you are all up in all of these texts and info, you could maybe be a little perturbed by maybe how you're handling some of your favorite characters. But man, if you're just a casual fan of this stuff, like, I'm having a great time. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I'll look forward to. It seems like it's supposed to be Fridays this drops, or is it Thursdays? I'm not entirely sure when I'm supposed to be watching episode 3. I guess I'll just wait around until there's a sponsored tweet put in my face of episode 3 now available. So I'm having a great time. No controversy on my end. It's great. it's a totally different DNA and chemical makeup than the other fantasy show that's on the air right now. And I think they can both coexist at the same time, and you can have fun watching both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where I'll show my hand. I am a Lord of the Rings person. If I had to pick one of these two, which one I'm going to watch or spend my time in fantasy, medieval lands, nothing against either one. I just lean Lord of the Rings. That's how our house falls. The other part is, again, the House of Dragons, Game of Thrones House of Dragons, which is on its, I believe, third episode today or yesterday, maybe.
Yesterday,
because today is Monday. Yeah, today is Monday. I've not had a chance to watch this, Mike. And
the series or just the episode?
Any of it. I've not watched any House of Dragons, and that's fine. And that's on me. I don't have the desire to watch it, and it's mostly because I've never had an affinity for Game of Thrones throughout its entire run. Not just the last season. I'm not one of those people like, the last season gave me a bad taste. I just never really, I don't know what the affinity, like, I don't know what I'm missing, to get there. But, at the same time, I don't know what to do. And I just looked at my, Lord of the Rings is 9 p.m. on Thursdays for you, midnight for me. So technically we're both Friday and Thursday.
Gotcha. Okay.
When Lord of the Rings comes out. So yes.
Good to know.
Anyway, yes. But Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, tell me what you think. We have a little bit of news for it, but go ahead and lay it on me what you're thinking.
Yeah, it is just very interesting, right? You just can't ignore that these two shows are concurrently airing side by side. They'll both be airing their, I think, third episodes within the same week of each other. If not, Game of Thrones could be an episode ahead. I'm not 100% sure. But they are basically running at the same time, both prequels of beloved, for the most part, franchises. I mean, if people want to, dog on the last, 1.5 seasons of, Game of Thrones, you can always just look over at The Hobbit from Lord of the Rings, right? I'm sure you can equally tarnish that as well. So we're back in these, prequel ages where you're looking at ancestors of beloved characters. So the comparisons really stop there, though, because the styles of the show are just totally different. I mean, House of Dragons just kind of lives and breathes the DNA of Game of Thrones, which is the fight for the throne. I don't think too many people are worried about who's going to sit on the throne in Middle Earth. It's kind of more about this fantasy struggle for power, which just feels just less political overall, where it's just in Lord of the Rings, if somebody wants something, they'll just go to war or they'll fight somebody for it, right? In House of Dragons, you gotta politically maneuver and get in there, and there's just less fantasy overall as well. I keep watching House of Dragons, and I just keep thinking there's a little bit of a missed opportunity of don't these people realize how useful these dragons are just outside of a war? I mean, come on, it's like they have a plane, right? To be able to fly around this kingdom just as something that nobody else can do to get from point A to point B. I almost feel like there should be a cottage industry within Westeros, right? Where you're just breeding a bunch of dragons. You start to make your own dragon airline business. I mean, the economy would flourish. They just need to make me hand of the king, and I'll just speak into the king's ear, and things will be booming. But beyond that, it's still very much Game of Thrones. You got the gratuitous violence. The nudity actually has been dialed down, which is usually not something you talk about, right? When you're talking about TV shows, just the existence of nudity. But Game of Thrones was kind of infamous for their sex position in the series, and this has significantly tied it down to the point of I always have this notion where I need to look at kind of the content warning in the top left corner, when a Game of Thrones property starts, right? Last week there was 0 nudity warning, so there thus no nudity in last week's episode, and this week there was only brief nudity warning, and I didn't even see it when it happened. So maybe that's a bit of a response to how the first season was handling that. But yeah, the House of Dragons is very, very much Game of Thrones, while Rings of Power is very, very much Lord of the Rings.
Well, and I think, if I was to say Lord of the Rings is essentially Dungeons and Dragons, it's the fight for good and evil, right? You have good and you have evil, and that's what the thing is. Well, you nailed it on the head. Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, it's all a political ploy, right? Like you could literally set that in any time frame, and it would still be the same kind of saga along the lines. It just happens to be in this fantasy medieval-esque kind of thing. So, right, I think they're very different. They're similar aesthetically, but different in terms of what story they're trying to tell.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and we'll probably briefly, readdress these two shows as the series go along, any high points, any low points that we want to talk about. But this just goes to show you that even when two guys like us have a superhero podcast where we talk about everything superheroes, right? There's fantasy shows like this that become so big and so popular and so ingrained in pop culture that we just simply can't ignore them, even for a premiere. So we checked them out. We let you know what we thought. It seems like between the two of us, we'll be watching them, and who knows? Maybe we'll come back here when the seasons wrap up, and we'll capture.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we'll at least have one in one foot, one in the other. So
exactly,
we got that. But the news for Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, is one of the there's two showrunners for season 1, and one of them has already left, even before the third episode has aired. They are for season 2. Ryan Condal, who is one of the two showrunners, will be the sole showrunner going forward.
Yeah,
I believe the other person will be executive producer, but that's it.
Yeah, I looked into this a little bit. The reason why they're leaving, it seems like it was honestly predetermined all along, because they're leaving the show just for an overall deal at HBO. So they're not leaving the network at all. There's nothing there. And also, they
must be a good deal, because HBO is not, they're not bringing in talent right now.
And there were dual showrunners to begin with, because Ryan Condal, who's going to be the sole showrunner, I believe they're a little bit more green. So it seems like they brought in kind of a more seasoned runner to kind of just get the show off and running, and then hand it over. So yeah, I don't think there's too much to worry about here, but there's definitely a spread, a spider's web casting out from House of Dragon that maybe will create more shows. It doesn't necessarily seem like the person who left is going to be doing more Game of Thrones, but that's always a possibility.
Yeah, and honestly, Game of Thrones is notorious for having dual showrunners in the first part, right? Like the first, I guess, the only Game of Thrones, not the spinoff. There's opportunity to tell more stories in this land. There's tons of other things. So it's just, there's opportunity for it to grow. I don't think this is bad news by any means, right? We've talked about, I don't think a showrunner leaving is necessarily bad along the times. Sometimes it takes a new showrunner, and we'll talk about another show that's getting a different showrunner that could inject some life into it down the road, or a different take. So, but I'm not hearing, complaints about House of Dragons. I'm not hearing complaints about, Lord of the Rings, like the people running the show. So, very interested to see how that plays off, and obviously they've already announced the season 2 we talked about last week, and they've got to get prepped for that now so they can start filming it sooner than later. The other thing that came out yesterday that I did not get to watch yet, I'm just beating myself up for it, is Rick and Morty. They're back with season 6 on Cartoon Network. I believe it's also on HBO Max now. I could be wrong on that one, but I know it's always on Cartoon Network. But the same day they also released a God of War, the new Ragnarok parody with Rick and Morty, where Rick shaves his head, paints his head red. It's we got to go to the 9 realms, Morty, and he gives Morty the bow and arrow, who's supposed to be the kid from the God of War stuff. So I love all their crossovers they do. They're unabashedly yes, they know they're doing a crossover promotion with another company, but God of War Ragnarok is just another big win for them on this.
Yeah, and I think there's also, I saw a news headline that they are committing to a new season every year now, so it seems like everything's kind of gone back to a regular production cycle. So hopefully you won't have to put up with too many replies to Adult Swim tweets that are when's the next season? It should be a little bit more regular moving forward.
So they were committed to season 7, I believe. Is that correct?
No, not through season 7. I think the contract was for 7 more seasons. I think they are. I 70, think they are committed.
I'm sorry, 70 episodes. We don't know how many seasons. So okay.
Yeah, so I feel like they're probably going to get to at least season 10. It feels like, and if not more beyond that.
Yeah, it looks like 10 per. So yeah, and that was in after season 3. So yeah, it looks like season 10. So I knew there was 7 in there somewhere. I just couldn't figure out where it lived.
That's all right. That's all right.
But the new one, apparently, I want to watch it, called Solar Rix, is apparently this is a new storytelling era for Rick and Morty, right? They're acknowledging the past but kind of moving forward. So I think, we mentioned, if they get through season 10, I can see them very much ending on season 10 on their terms, and this is the start of that kind of back half of the show where everything gets towards that. So I'm excited to kind of dig into this. The Rick and Morty fan base has been very toxic over the years. We've talked about this, so we're blue in the face, right? Like, remember the Szechuan sauce at McDonald's?
Yeah. We'll never forget.
Yeah, it was just awful. So I'm glad Rick and Morty that has died down and quelled, and they can come back and give us some fun science fiction show, because we talked about they did an Infinity Train-esque episode a couple seasons ago, and that show has been canceled now. So it's a way to go cartoon sci-fi for sure. Moving into Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun stuff version. Did you go see it this weekend, Mike?
I did not, but I did see a YouTuber who did a intensive kind of breakdown of what indeed was new. I feel like I did not miss much.
You're right. So it did a little over $6 million for the holiday weekend. Not bad for a re-release, almost a year later. And there's 11 more minutes. There's a post-credit scene now, Mike. I know you probably heard about that. There was not one originally because that was the Doctor Strange trailer. And there is a more Matt Murdock scene, so Charlie Cox gets some extra stuff. But what I've seen from leaked camera footage is underwhelming, like seriously underwhelming for an extra version.
Yeah, I've heard in its benefit that a lot of the extra footage doesn't necessarily seem like deleted scenes. Some of it does, for sure, but not all of it, so that's good. And I did hear one positive review of apparently there is kind of like a 3 Spider-Men talking to each other joke that maybe is about possibly web shooters, not 100% sure. That wasn't in the original film. That is in this bonus version that is very, very funny. So some people were saying that the joke is good enough just to go back to see the movie for. I will wait around and see for sure. But I think the big question now is, now that it's kind of out there in the world, right, who's going to be streaming this extra fun version, right? Is that going to Netflix? Is Sony going to make sure that never gets the stream, so they always have a revenue model to sell it,
Was it Stars, I believe, that currently
Well, I think it should be. I think it should be Netflix. I mean, there's a chance that some stuff could be on Stars at the present moment, just because they're waiting for contracts to expire. But everything is supposed to be going to Netflix.
Yeah.
So we'll see. If
it's still on Stars.
Going there.
So Homecoming, No Way Home, and I believe, No Way Home. Sorry, I meant Far From Home. No Way Home. Yeah, they're all on Stars right now. So that contract has not kicked in yet.
Yeah. It always happens on like the first of a month, it feels like. We were trying to rewatch that 70s show, and we were looking around for it, and like bizarrely enough, it wasn't streaming at all, which I thought was surprising because Netflix is going to be coming out with that 90s show sooner rather than later. So we checked on September 1st, the first of the month, and lo and behold, that 70s show is now streaming on Peacock. So just keep your eyes out. The first of the month, it's always a boon. It's always a boon or a loss, right? You could be losing the thing that you're trying to watch. Like I know Schitt's Creek is leaving in October, Netflix, and moving over to Hulu. So
I just did a quick double check, and it looks like Netflix's deal started for 2022 films. So there's no date when those will go over there. So we'll see. We'll see when those happen. But honestly, I mean, this is one of those things like I'm not gonna feel bad just watching the bonus stuff on YouTube later. Like if I'm gonna be completely honest,
they already got my money.
Yeah, so I've got that. It's also hopefully one day Disney will be like, hey Sony, can we just put these on Disney Plus? Like please, like let everyone watch, because in other countries they have it on Disney Plus, so we don't. So
this would be the perfect opportunity, right, to hawk a VPN as like sponsored content, because that's what all those ad reads always are. So if you're a VPN and you want to sponsor the podcast, let us know. We could organically work you in every episode so easily.
We will find a way. Honestly, we'll probably use you quite a bit just to watch some of these movies to see what it is. I love, to be completely honest, like I will go find screenshots of the other Disney Plus, the Marvel timeline from Disney Plus in other countries, because they include every movie. in there, including Spider-Man, because they don't do that on the American ones. Yeah, love to do that. Staying in the Marvel Universe, and again, this is fantastic news but tragic at the same time. The Emmys were this weekend, right?
The Creative Arts Emmys were this weekend.
Yes, the Creative Arts Emmys. So the Chadwick Boseman has won a Emmy for his performance as Star-Lord T'Challa in the What If series. So, we sadly lost him. Was it 2 years ago now? I believe. Last year we had What If. Almost, it feels like over a year ago. What If? He recorded those lines before that, and he just did a great job. And congratulations to him and his family who were there to accept the award and take that. So
yeah, that's great. I would love to see. Yeah. I know the Creative Arts Emmys usually aren't televised, but I wonder if there'll be any footage of that, because that'd be kind of nice to see. But there was some other good news that came out of the Creative Arts Emmys. I know Arcane, a show that I've been telling everybody to watch on Netflix, they won an Emmy. I don't know if it was the Emmy, for animated program, but they definitely won a big one, which was well deserved. And then also Severance has started to win some smaller awards. So I'm hoping that's a good sign that next week, when the actual Emmys are, I think it's Sunday night next week, if not Monday. I don't know what
Monday.
Day
It's Monday. They're the 12th. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping Severance does a bit of a sweep there.
Yeah, Chip and Dale won television movie, by the way. We talked about how we thought that movie was pretty funny.
So that movie is an absolute gem, and I feel like nothing like that will ever happen again in our lifetime.
Oh yeah, it's and this is unrelated, but I think it's hilarious. Because you can think of Rick and Morty. Think of this like Mark Zuckerberg is trying to create the metaverse right on Facebook. Using the VR and the Oculus platform. However, someone was like, the metaverse already exists and it's Fortnite. Literally everything can live in Fortnite, right? And you pick a property, it's going to be in there. And I'm like, well, also a Chip and Dale is is a great thing. This is the metaverse, right? Where they recognize cartoon characters were cartoon characters doing acts, and they can make this whole movie based on Ugly Sonic. Nobody knows who Ugly Sonic is. He's not a character. He was just a bad profile, but they turned him into a character, and that's funny. To me, I think that's just hilarious as hell. So, I think that's funny. So, yeah, we'll let you guys know more if there's other big winners when those debut next Monday when we're recording, Mike, a week from today. Wonder Man, that show that is coming out, I believe, produced by Daniel Cretton, the director of Shang-Chi, and the upcoming in Kang Dynasty War. Is it Kang Wars? Dynasty Wars. Which one's it called, Mike?
Kang. I think it's just called Kang Dynasty.
Kang Dynasty. There it is. Yeah, Secret Wars is the one after it. The show. So they have, I guess, not announced. This is reports that the series will see the return of Trevor Slattery, played by Ben Kingsley, and this is a character who has really pulled a 180 in the MCU, if you will. People really did not like his twist in Iron Man 3 at all, enough to, get Kevin Feige to create a one-shot to kind of rectify the Mandarin. And then they created, Shang-Chi, whose dad is the Mandarin, and they fixed it, and they included Trevor Slattery last year. Again, his spiel about the Planet of the Apes movie, they were monkeys acting like they were riding horses, is one of my favorite, I guess, puns or jokes for this character. So it's very interesting that he would come back. However, in the comic books, Wonder Man is an actor. He's popular. He's a well-known actor. So it would be sense to have someone else who is an actor be in that show, if you will.
Yeah, it would be kind of funny if Trevor Slattery maybe, he went on this adventure, right? But it seems like he needs to go back to the real world at some point in time. So maybe he'll do an acting school, or maybe he'll try to weasel his way into the entourage of Wonder Man. Who knows? Yeah. But he's a funny character now.
Yeah. Once you see him for who he is, and then they put him in the right place, he's great. The interesting part of this is that, as far as we know, there is no lead cast for this show. Now, next weekend could change this for us in a heartbeat, but at this moment in time, we don't know who Wonder Man himself actually is, or what where the show's going to live, and that's fine. I think they can have shows in different levels of production, at any given moment.
But if we're starting to get this news right before kind of the next big wave of announcements, there seems to be a higher chance than normal, right, that we could hear.
Yeah. So. The closer you get to like bigger trades picking stuff up, I think to an event, the more likely you have as well, right? This isn't just like we got this covered, running an article to cover every actor under the sun's name in here. So we'll talk about that here in a second. Before we get into that, I do want to talk about one Marvel project that wasn't announced at San Diego Comic-Con, but we know is coming. It'll be the end of this year, only because friend of the show Quentin has Legos of this actual show in his hands at his house, and that's the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I went to the store after he showed us that, and I found them at the store as well, Mike. So if anyone is looking to get Legos based on this upcoming short, you can find them. But I want to show you guys this link to Twitter showing the first art for the upcoming holiday special, and it includes a very, very interesting tagline twice called "Yondu Ruined Christmas."
Yeah, which is a little odd, because if this is indeed supposed to take place after Volume 2, did he ruin Christmas because he's dead and he's just
I think he ruined Christmas
anymore?
because if Peter grew up with Yondu probably lied to him what Christmas was, or like ruined it for him every year, kind of thing.
Oh, so you're thinking maybe we could be seeing like flashbacks or something like that. Yeah, that does make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, flashbacks, or like Peter's like, this is our first time, to go celebrate Christmas together, whatever. Because they very specifically mention Christmas in this several times, right? Like, we've talked about being a holiday special. Do they know what Christmas is in space? Well, it sounds like he's going to be trying to share some Christmas cheer. So I just don't. The other thing is, I don't know what that little ghost-looking dude with the 3 dots in the bottom left is.
It's hard to say, because this is what we're looking at here is what is akin to, like, I would say a sticker sheet, right? Yeah. Like when you get like to and from labels to put on your presents around the holidays. This is kind of the vibe that we're getting from this for sure. Yeah, I don't know what that is. There's like 3 dots in the head. Maybe it's like the ghost of like Christmas past or something, kind of that vibe. But there's also a Christmas like wreath that says, I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas time is here. Kind of has a little bit of a cadence to me of like a song, right? So maybe they'll be singing. We know James Gunn loves his music and even parody style songs. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot that you can kind of glean from this.
Yeah, well, my favorite I think is Season's Greetings. It's literally it's made out of twigs. It's got Groot. Mistletoe, huge thing here. They really lean into the new Guardians logo, which is from the 2008 comic line. The Ravager, I guess, inspired logo. So, yeah, I think this is fun. This is great. I'm really excited to see more. It's fun to see that Groot still has an emoji if you hashtag Groot when you look at this tweet. You can check out in the show notes, get a direct link to that and see what that art looks like if you want to. So, yeah. This coming weekend is Disney's D23. This is every 2 years, right, Mike? They host this in person. So this is a big event. This is the fan event as well, meaning this is not the like a Disney. Has Disney Plus A, but this is not like a shareholder only thing. People can get tickets and go to this. They are very expensive. I looked into them. Very expensive, Mike. I was very shocked, sticker shock. But I do want to share. I sent this to you early on. There has been going around. Recently in the upper echelons of news articles about Marvel's rumored announcements for casting coming up this weekend, and I'm going to list some names out here, Mike, and you tell me what you think as we kind of go through this. So first and foremost is Star Wars actor John Boyega making a crossover into Marvel.
Yeah, could be maybe a bit of an apology from Disney overall. Maybe I don't know if his beef was with Kathleen Kennedy in general, but he didn't really like the way his character was handled in that trilogy, and I think we'd all agree with him there. So it seems like if he is going to be taking on another project at the same studio, he's probably being promised things will be done better long term for his characters.
And I think, again, the people running this are better. I don't know. I don't want to jump. A lot of the articles are like, well, maybe he's in Blade or he's in, Captain America. I'm like, well, I don't want to typecast him. Just because he is a black actor. I don't want to put him in the movies with those leads. So like he could literally be in any movie coming up here. Moving on is a big heavy hitter from DC, Henry Cavill. This has been rumored for a long time, Mike.
This almost really feels like similar gripes. The same exact thing that I said about John Boyega, right? You know, looking to be treated a little bit better, have a little bit more of an idea of what the future likes with the projects. Yeah. And at least you can plan on consistency, right, when you take a role at Marvel.
Yeah, I do have a rumored theory for him that he will be playing a Marvel's Hyperion in the Loki show. Is the front running rumor here, if you will, for Vegas odds. Are you familiar with Hyperion by chance?
For some reason, my brain keeps connecting to Sentry, but is that right? Is there
very close?
Sort of...
Yeah. So Hyperion in the Marvel universe, there's another universe they called the Squadron Supreme, which was Marvel's DC version, and Hyperion is their Superman, which would be funny for him to play a Superman. And the rumor is that he's supposed to be Hyperion is like a multiversal villain for the Loki show, not just a one-off kind of cameo.
I see.
An actor of his nature.
You wouldn't put like literal Superman in the MCU without doing something with them, right? Like I keep thinking back to like Christian Bale, right? Because we have a list of a lot of these like really high profile actors that we're about to talk about, and same vibes that everyone had when it's like, oh my God, Christian Bale, he used to be Batman, this big high profile actor is going to be in the MCU, and then like does not really survive outside of the one movie he was in, and his performance was great, but just felt like he was in the wrong movie to me.
He's lacking any character development at all.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate. So that is something that we do have to worry about. Like we might talk about like a really big actor here that could unfortunately go to waste, but so I hope not.
Yeah. Yeah, if he's in Loki as Hyperion, I think that's gonna be fantastic, right? That's a real like jab at DC. Like he's playing our Superman now. To hell with you. But you know he could also play anybody else that he really wants to. Maybe he's Wonder Man, right? Like he's got that stature of a Wonder Man built into him. Actress Jodie Comer, she is rumored to be playing Susan Storm, possibly. She was a front runner in some articles I saw.
She looks so familiar. Oh, she is from
Knives Out.
Killing Eve. Also, that was a very, very popular show for Showtime. Maybe I don't remember exactly what it was on. That's why she looks familiar. Okay, I know.
And she was in Free Guy as she was the woman developer.
Oh yeah, she was. That's right.
Yeah. So at least maybe she was in Knives Out. I don't know. Either way, doesn't matter.
Everyone's
Daisy
in
Edgar
Knives
Jones,
Out eventually.
Yeah. Daisy Edgar Jones, she's recently been in Where the Crawdads Sing, which actually just hit digital today. She's also rumored to be cast or announced as cast for the MCU going forward. I don't know. I have nothing behind who she might be as well. So could be anybody. John Krasinski. People really want him back as Mr. Fantastic. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, he exists, right, in a multiversal plane. Well, not that multiversal plane anymore. So, but this is also contradicts the very, very strong reports, or I guess not strong reports, the multitude of reports that it's going to be that other guy. I don't know who that other guy is. Like, he's got the
guy from
hair. Yeah, everyone's doing the photoshops of him in a Fantastic Four suit. So, we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. John Krasinski is also a fantastic actor. He could be anything he wanted to be in these if he so chooses to be. Little less surprising, Giancarlo Esposito, right? So he's Moff Gideon in Star Wars. He is Breaking Bad. He is he's in Far Cry 6. He's in everything, right? Great actor. People want him to be Professor X. So.
I've also seen that.
I don't know.
I've seen the heavy rumor also of possibly Doctor Doom as well.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see where that pans out. But yeah, it does kind of seem like you got to get to a point here in your head where these really big characters that have yet to be cast, like Professor X or Doctor Doom, that we haven't really seen much of at all, are going to be probably really big actors, right? It feels like you don't put no names in those roles, or at least lesser name in those roles.
Yeah, and also the thing is, we've talked about this. I don't know if they will announce X-Men actors before 2025. So we're kind of like, in a weird place where they may not, but I still think he's a great actor caliber. So we'll let you know what comes out of that. And lastly, big name Denzel Washington, Mike. One of the greats himself. So
Denzel.
I don't know who you.
That would be a huge get, right? Like, that almost kind of seems like so high profile in a sense of like, well, we can get him, but he only wants to do like one movie. He's got a stacked schedule, doesn't want to commit to a franchise, but he's got like nieces, nephews, kids that are begging him to do a superhero movie, right? So he said he'll do one of them. I get that vibe from him too, right? But also, he's so powerful. Like he kind of seems like Josh Brolin-esque in a way, where like you give him a big character that lasts several movies, where he gets to punch a ton of different characters, right? So I don't know how that's gonna go. Like, do you go like CG? Like, I feel like with this list of actors that we talked about, at least one of them I feel like has to be alien in nature, right? With like the cosmic side spilling out. So who's getting the green skin, right? Who's getting the pointy ears and the antennas? It's got to be somebody here. So I don't know if Denzel would want to do that, but worked well for Brolin being Thanos. So we'll have to wait and see.
But he could easily be, possibly thinking ahead to Secret Wars, right? Like, there's a character called the Beyonder who is all powerful in the Secret Wars. He's the one who kind of holds all this stuff together. With he could be a Beyonder. He could be something else. Like, there's a lot of opportunities, towards Secret Wars, right? Like the big one, to make some impact on the MCU at large. So a lot of, these actors I listened to, these 7 huge actors, some up and comers, some big established ones. A lot of talent, a lot of name recognition right here alone. I did see the article saying that these are being rumored for Phase 5, but these characters could also be Phase 6 as well. We may not know until they announce them this weekend. If they announce, I really hope they announce them this weekend, Mike. I think this would be just I would just love to come back next week and talk about this, get that hype level going, because I think once we get some confirmations, I'd be so excited.
Me too.
So you guys check that out. We'll report back to you next week. Moving on, Thunderbolts, the upcoming movie from Marvel. It's like the Suicide Squad. The current report is that Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova will lead the team, which will again be similar to the Suicide Squad, but also include John Walker, U.S. Agent, and Baron Zemo. There were no other names mentioned out the gate, but doesn't mean there's not, right? There will be other people. We just don't know who they are.
Yeah, those are the most obvious and safest things to bet, so it makes sense that we would hear about those first. But Florence Pugh, she's the minute, she's the scene, she's the girl right now, she's the actor. So it makes sense that you kind of put her at the front. And also, I like her character like miles ahead of these other two. So I'll look forward to more Yelena.
Yeah, you need someone who's leading the team who's likable, right? Like, even her appearance in Hawkeye was probably some of the highlights. Like, she's eating mac and cheese with sriracha in it. Like, you're like, yep, I out of the pot even. I'm like, man, I relate to that on so many levels. Yep. And then she's got the actress of Florence. She's got a new movie coming out, right? That people are praising.
Oh man, there is a whole drama circling around that movie.
Yeah, not because of her.
Right? The whole like Olivia Wilde, Harry Styles, who's the kid from Transformers?
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf. It's crazy. I don't think that'll really spill over into what we talk about here on the show. Yeah. But
people were. The one I did read was people were praising her performance in it. So
she is the moment. She transcends above the drama.
yeah, exactly. So let's shift some gears into some DC real fast here. Fandome, people who are so excited, waiting to get their invitations. You're going to have to sadly retreat back to your homes because Fandome is canceled for 2022, Mike. And my guess is if it's canceled for this year, it's canceled forever. The idea of a virtual event is out the window, right? They're going back to in-person events. They're going to spend money at Comic-Con. They've got leaders at the top of this who don't know what's going on. So I feel like this was just inevitable that they were like, we didn't get anything ready for it.
It does make you wonder though, right? Is it a chicken and an egg, or is it both simultaneously, where they don't have anything to talk about and they don't have the money and the resources to put into to throwing it as well? Because that is honestly one thing that happens when you merge companies. You start getting rid of the the duplicates. The overlap, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, whether it's a live or a virtual event, you have a whole event staff that has to take care of all of that, and maybe all of the people that were controlling Fandom previously all got kicked to the curb. Who knows?
I would say they probably, like, because mergers take so long, they were probably like, hey, just hold on while we figure this out, and then no one got it done, and they were like, I guess it's too late.
I realize now you said mergers, but it sounded like you said murders, and I was like, that still applies.
The Warner Brothers
killing
murders,
everything. Yep.
Yeah. So no Fandome this year. Sad to say. I did see my first Black Adam promotional material yesterday, Mike. I got one of the Rock's Zoa energy drink.
Okay. Of course, it's
Rock.
Black
Adam's on it. Yeah, I know.
I was just about to make a joke. Oh, was it just The Rock tweeting about it? Like, no, it was him putting it on his.
No, it was his face on his own cans. Yeah, I was like, they didn't really have to try too hard on this, did they?
His energy drinks aren't bad. I mean, you kind of have to go out of your way to make a energy drink that I won't drink, and his is drinkable.
I like the white peach. If you can get the white peach, Mike, and try it, I highly recommend it. So.
All right. Good to know.
Good stuff. That's the can I had with the Black. It was the only one with Black Adam. No other can had it. So, of course, I had to get it. Harley Quinn. For those who are watching the third season, will be glad to know that the fourth season has been renewed to HBO Max. Mike, one of the actual things to carry over. With get a new season.
Yeah, I saw the showrunner or whoever is leading this show and writing or whatever. I don't know much about the crew that makes this show. They tweeted like, "Be right back, gonna save Warner Brothers HBO Max." So
yeah. So like with this, so with the season 1 through 3, they've had 2 showrunners. I forget their names, but there's now a new showrunner in place, Sarah Peters, who's worked on Workaholics and Nathan For You, and she's been a writer on Harley Quinn since the show started, and is currently a consulting producer for season 3.
That's probably the person that tweeted it. Then that's probably the tweet I saw.
Yeah. So those 2 guys have moved on. I believe they're maybe going to be EPs or something. But she will be taking over for that in season 4. So I think this is an opportunity for, again, like we talked about at the start of the show, a writer, someone invested in the property, to take over and run with the show. For at least season 4, and we'll see how that goes. Friend of the show, Brian, he's been watching it. He's really enjoyed season 3. Apparently, the Joker has settled down and married someone else in the show who already has like kids. So he's like trying to be like a house dad kind of thing. And apparently it's funny. I need to get on the show again. So no offense to it. All right, lastly, we're going to sit here and talk about She-Hulk episode 3 this week, Mike. So if you've not watched She-Hulk, you can go knock them out, I think, all 3 episodes faster than you can watch the first episode of The Rings of Power. So these are, again, 25 to 30-minute episodes, very quick, very fun, very breezy. So we're on episode 3. If you've not seen it, go watch it, come back, you can listen, or not, whatever you want to do.
I suppose it's the... I was just going to say, I suppose it's the theme for this week's episode to bookend the show with vocal minorities, because the people complaining about the show are like just driving me crazy, because I just want to shake them and just be happy that we're getting something that's like quality and good and entertaining, because I feel like it's been a while since I've been excited to watch something on Disney Plus.
If you don't like it, don't fucking watch it. Like,
gasp.
This also, not every project is going to be for you. And everyone I've seen, like, literally everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not, sexist. I just don't like Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and She-Hulk." I'm like, "You like, why?" They're like, "Well, I just don't like their attitudes." I'm like, "You have no other reason to not like these shows." Like, it's literally, and it's also not for you. Like She-Hulk. My wife is loving She-Hulk probably more than I am. Mm-hmm. I'm having a good time with it, but like, the end of this episode, I think, is the thing that everyone's just getting up in arms over nothing. It's literally got a Megan Thee Stallion, and She-Hulk, which was actually motion captured by Tatiana Maslany, dancing to "Body" by, again, Megan Thee Stallion and dancing and twerking to it. I'm like, this is funny. This is hilarious. Like, this is what this show needs to be funny, and I'm having a good time with it.
Yeah, it's just good humor. Like I think we've said before, I personally haven't read a lot of She-Hulk comics or stories, but I've seen a lot of people defend the humor online too, of just like, you've obviously never read She-Hulk before. She's constantly, breaking the third wall. Like, this is
fourth
funny.
Wall.
This is jokes. Yeah, fourth wall. That's right. I got to keep track of all my walls. But yeah, I feel like we do just kind of need to take a moment here just to defend the show in a way. And I do understand the spirit of what you're saying when you say not every show is like made for you. But I almost think that is a little that is almost like a little way of kind of getting people like letting them off easily, because honestly, anything that's quality can be enjoyed if you just get out of your own way too. It's just like I said at the top of the show, like, I'm like rewatching Gilmore Girls for like the third time, and I love that show, and that is about a teenage daughter and their mother and their grandmother and the drama of their small town. Like, people just need to expand their horizons and realize, like, what is storytelling. It's about drama and what people go through in their lives, and it can be humorous, it can be dramatic and sad, but people need to get out of their own way. It's so annoying that people won't let themselves enjoy something because there's like a line in the show of like how like, oh, men have had it pretty good, I think it's time for the ladies to have some fun. And then there's just a curmudgeon old dude in the corner like, no, I hate this show.
And I think when I say it's not made for you, I mean, it's one of those things like, you don't have to watch every episode and go write a long-winded paragraphs upon paragraphs review of the show saying why you hated it. Is what I guess what I'm saying, like, right? Like, it's not like, oh, just get over it. It's like, I'm not a huge, again, Game of Thrones person. I'm not out there watching it and then going and spreading negativity to everybody else when I watch it or see something. I just don't like at the end of the day. There's stuff that anyone can enjoy. Like, there's stuff that, like, if I don't want to ruin somebody else's fun because I didn't enjoy it. Is what I'm getting at. And I believe you're the same way, right? Like, we don't need to go break someone down because they're liking a show, or attack a show just because we don't necessarily agree with it all the time. Yeah. And I feel like this vocal minority just doesn't let up at all. Yeah. Like, no matter what.
And obviously we're not the end-all, be-all deciders of what is good or isn't. But I'm telling you right now, I have not been enjoying a lot of Marvel stuff that's been on Disney Plus recently, but I am actually really enjoying this. I was a little worried because Moon Knight's kind of started to take a turn on episode 3, but this is turning in the right direction. I'm having a good time. So we can just talk about the stuff that we liked in this episode. I loved it when Tatiana Maslany, I guess I can refer to her as Jen Walters, because she was not the She-Hulk, when she took the stand and she was testifying for how her like ex-coworker would be dumb enough to think he was dating Megan Thee Stallion, which was a shapeshifter, and I just thought that was hilarious. And I was kind of a little worried of like, well, how are they going to explain this shape-shifting superpower? Because like I've said before, I'm worried about how are they justifying all of this extra magic and super strength in this world that's been roughly grounded in reality. And like, oh, it's an elf from Asgard. Okay, that makes sense. We've established Asgard as being terrestrial, or even if it wasn't terrestrial, right? The kind of uncanon Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would have a little bit of crossover there every once in a while too. So I was like, okay, that's a good explanation. We don't have to like invent something brand new to have this character exist. And it's just that whole thread. It's just hilarious. Everything was so funny about it.
Well, I think I'm going to go back a little further. At the start of the episode, she's driving back from the prison. She's like, and she starts to literally talk to the camera. She's like, "Oh, this isn't one of those shows where there's a cameo of the week, except for Bruce and Abomination and now Wong." Like, she's like, "We know you're here for Wong." Like, literally telling us what we already know. Like, damn, that's smart. Like, that is some really fun stuff right there. Because like, we know what it is. Yeah,
and I started tracking it in my head too. I was like, okay, well, also we're going to be having Daredevil too, so that's at least half of the season, right? That's going to have cameos in it. So so I thought that was pretty funny.
And then to that point later, where they're at, like, right before she agrees to do that thing, she leans toward, like, oh, the A and B plot come together. You're like, like, oh, this is fun. Like, this, like, her breaking the fourth wall is actually way more entertaining than it should be, because it's not like Deadpool. Well, it's kind of like Deadpool, but like, you know, we're pointing out the flaws of the show while also having fun with that as well. But, you know, again, we got to see Abomination finally in his full form, right? Talking about why he went to the thing. Wong stood on the stand. You know, we found out that, you know, he used to be a Target employee at in Nepal, based on his LinkedIn profile. Yeah, and the footage from Shang-Chi, obviously. But I think one of the cool things is, you know, I think if you watch these pretty quickly, you know, it's about an hour. It's kind of like halfway through episode 2, right? If we're looking at longer hour-long episodes. We get the wrecking crew at the end of this, who she actually wrecks themselves. But they have, like, Asgardian imbued, like, she said, do you steal an Asgardian, like, wrecking or construction?
And they're like, yeah, we did. And it,
yeah.
And it doesn't even faze her, which I thought was pretty cool, because I thought we were going to see the moment of, like, oh, now she actually has to, you know, deal with the ramifications that she's not invincible. It's like, no, she actually was. This stuff didn't really touch her. Yeah. Probably if an Asgardian was holding that stuff, you know, they probably could do some damage.
Yeah, some thugs, and then, you know, again, the needle, like, you know, now we're seeing the story plot kind of come into play. Right? Someone's trying to steal her blood, and we don't know who it is or what's going on. So I think we're gonna start seeing that villain come into play and see what's kind of going on here. But overall, again, these are breezy episodes. They're very, very fun. They don't take themselves too seriously, and honestly, it's just great to kind of experience it throughout. Literally, I knew Megan Thee Stallion was in this episode because from stuff I read a while ago, I was trying to keep it secret, and my wife was like, "Oh, she's not going to be in the episode. You know, they're just going to reference her." And then she's like in the courtroom, and she's like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh, yep, that was her one thing." And then because I'd already seen, if you don't watch this show, obviously that end credits scene was on fucking line everywhere on Thursday. So when we got to that, she was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yep." They actually filmed them doing this scene here and ran CGI to it. So it's just a great time. Like I said, I'm having a blast with She-Hulk. And, you know, I'm excited for next week's cameo, whoever that may or may not be along the way.
Cameo of the week. Yeah, we'll stay tuned. We'll report back next week alongside of the D23 Expo, which will probably have more Disney Plus Marvel news at that as well.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we don't know when the next show is, do we? For Disney Plus, this is technically the last Marvel Disney Plus show with the date. So
yeah, you're just gonna have to deal with Andor until you get your next nerdy thing that chew your teeth.
That's right. Buckle up, Buckaroos. We're in for a long fall. All right, well, that's been the episode for the week, Mike. Let's get out of here. Enjoy the rest of our Labor Day before we have to go back to work tomorrow. But if people know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at, man?
They can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my web comics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you? You can find me on Twitter, Valdan, Valdan, or Instagram at Valdan87. I'm also trying to post stuff on Rad Retro Bros, Bros, on Instagram. So you can catch out one of my unboxing videos I put on there. So I'm trying some new stuff. If people know more about the show, where they can listen, when's our next review? Like, I feel like Black Adam maybe coming up. I don't know. We haven't had one in a minute. Where can they find all our good episodes at? Yeah, this is where I keep it short and sweet because, like I said at the top of the show, it is hot as hell out here in Southern California. Yes. So I'll just say visit superheroslate.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to podcasts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can get merch. superheroslate.com/store. We love our super fans. If you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy. We'll be here every week, folks. That's right. We'll catch you guys next week. Bye. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.